When it comes to their freedom and rights, women often face gender inequality, oppression, even violence around the world. This week on Fullframe, we'll introduce you to amazing women determined to defy the odds and speak up in their own defense worldwide. I'm Mike Walter, coming to you from the heart of New York City's Times Square. Let's take it full frame. At the 2014 World Economic Forum, the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon announced that girls are the key to ending global poverty. No one could agree with that more than our next guest. At the age of 12, while visiting her mother's native Argentina, Denise Dunning saw something that stayed with her ever since. She witnessed a poor young girl, not much older than herself, begging with a baby and a toddler in tow. This early experience was the impetus behind creating Rise Up. Through its various programs, the lives of more than 115 million children and women have been transformed around the globe. One of these programs is called Girls Behind the Camera, an intense workshop which encourages these young women to take a stand and make a positive impact in their communities.
We are 6 girls who have come together to discuss the issues that are affecting us, adolescent girls in Malawi. I am an advocate for girls because I want to stop sex trade, because I want to abolish harmful traditional practices, because I want to help girls stay in school, because I want to help girls to have better access for education, because I want to stop domestic violence against girls, because I want to end child marriage.
Denise Dunning knows firsthand that investing in girls' leadership and empowerment leads them to change their communities, their countries, and perhaps even the world. She's joining us now from San Francisco. We want to welcome you to Full Frame, Denise. Great to have you.
Thanks so much.
If you don't mind, go back in time. Tell us a little bit more about this episode that really kind of helped shape your advocacy in many respects.
Yeah, when I was about 12 years old, I was in Argentina with my parents, and we were on a train. It was Christmas Eve, and we were on a train going out of Buenos Aires to go visit family friends for the holidays. And as we pulled into a station about 20 minutes outside the city, the train doors opened, and at the far end of the train, I saw a girl step into the car. And I was 12, and she was maybe 14 or 15. And just a couple years older than me, and she was carrying this baby and dragging a toddler along behind her, and they were dirty and poor and ragged. And I watched as this girl came down the length of the train and in every aisle stopped and asked for food and asked for money and asked for help. And I saw how in every single row of that train, people just looked away. And they didn't want to see her, and they didn't want to help her. And I remember feeling so incredibly angry that there was nothing that I could do, and so helpless and so ashamed. And I vowed on that, that night a long time ago, that if there was ever anything that I could do for a girl like that, a girl who was so much like me, but in such a different place in the world, that I would. And so fast forward several years, and I had the chance to start an organization called Rise Up in 2009, which advances health, education, and equity for girls, youth, and women everywhere. And since we got started, have been able to advocate for 124 laws impacting 115 million girls, youth, and women in the world.
Being on that train, obviously you recognize there's a problem with this girl, but to see it ripple across the globe, I mean, you see it in so many places. I mean, is it astonishing to you what you see?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right now we're working in 11 different countries, and the challenges facing girls are enormous. There are 600 million girls right now who are living in poverty. So what that means is they don't get to go to school. They don't get to see a doctor when they need one. They often don't get enough to eat every day. They often live in silence and in fear and in violence. And so these are the realities facing girls. And what we've seen at the same time is that these girls are not victims. These girls are amazing leaders and incredible agents of change. And by giving them the tools and the resources and the support that they need, they can become incredible leaders for their own communities and their own countries.
So, you know, it's easy to kind of think, oh, geez, they're trapped with such a huge burden. And yet you see the power of these young girls. Can you talk to me about that dichotomy?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right. You know, these girls are facing enormous challenges. In Malawi in particular, more than half of girls are married before the age of 18. And oftentimes, you know, people don't bat an eye when a 12-year-old girl is married off to a man who's, you know, twice or three times her age. And these are the realities facing poor girls and poor families. And at the same time, what we've seen is that these girls are incredibly strong and resilient, and that they can stand up and speak out for their rights and the rights of other girls in their communities.
Well, Malawi is a success story in many respects for what you've done. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially what we do at Rise Up is we're, in a way, angel investors in the social sector. So we find visionary local leaders like Faith and Joyce in Malawi who were just getting started, and we gave them the training, the leadership development, the funding, and the networks to be able to achieve much larger scale impact. So we supported them to launch a campaign called I Will Marry When I Want, which brought together 200 girls to learn about their rights and really decide what it was that they wanted for themselves and their communities. And so this group of girls was able to advocate with village chiefs, and they've gotten now 60 village chiefs to pass laws making it so that if a man marries a girl under the age of 21, he has his land taken away and has to pay a fee of 7 goats. So through this girl-led campaign, they now have been able to protect thousands of girls from child marriage. And one of the girls who was part of that campaign, an amazing young woman named Memory Banda, who you see in that film, really led much of that charge that resulted in a building of momentum that over time ended up with passage of a national law in Malawi just last year that outlaws child marriage at the national level. So, you know, from going and just meeting 2 young women, Faith and Joyce, and giving them a bit in the way of extra support and funding, they were able to go from reaching just a few girls in their community to now having legal protection in place for 4 million girls in Malawi that guarantees that girls are not going to be forced into early marriage and can really stay in school and pursue their hopes and their dreams for their own futures.
I guess in some respects, you know, when you think about nonprofits and trying to make an impact, you know, like I see it as kind of the outside game, the inside game. You're on the outside. You're in San Francisco, coming in and trying to change things, but it really isn't successful unless you have the inside game. You connect with these kids, and they understand the dynamics a lot better than you can.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about that and why that's so critically important in what you're doing.
Yeah, it's key to the work that we do. So, you know, what we do is find visionary local leaders who are doing important work on a small scale and give them the support that they need to achieve much larger scale impact. And the reason that we've created this model is because these leaders know what the realities are and know what the challenges and the opportunities are. And so by having the extra support from us in terms of learning how to advocate for larger scale change and giving them the funding that they need to launch these campaigns, they're able to achieve so much greater impact than, you know, we sitting here in San Francisco. It wouldn't make sense for us to come in and try to tell them what the priorities should be. It's really about finding those visionary local leaders and giving them the support that they need.
What about giving them the voice and storytelling as a capacity to help them achieve these successes that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You know, the story that you mentioned about our work in Guatemala, we started there in 2010. And at the time, we were working with a group of girls who, you know, indigenous Mayan girls who had never had the chance to learn about their rights or become leaders in their community. And these girls just grabbed it, and they launched a campaign asking for their mayor to support girls' health and girls' education. And, you know, the first meeting that they had, the mayor literally laughed out loud and told them that they should go home and not waste his time. But these girls were strong, and they were resilient, and they actually used media really strategically. So they went on local TV and did interviews in the local local press and local radio, and really talked about why it's important to invest in girls, and got local leaders and religious leaders and parents and indigenous leaders in a dialogue about why girls' education and health is so important. And so they were able over time to win the mayor over, so that he actually passed legislation that he co-wrote with the girls supporting girls' health and education, and put money out of his annual budget to support those services for girls.
You know, we've been talking about education. We've got a clip right now, and I want to run this clip real quick, and then on the backside we can talk a little bit more about it, because it gets to the key of what you're talking about, education. So let's look at this.
Great.
In Malawi, there are many challenges which girls face at school. When I was a little girl, going to school scared me. My teacher used to hit me. He would make me stay after school and clean. There were stories of girls being raped in the bathroom. When my teacher touched the breast of one of my classmates, I became very mad. I told him he couldn't do that to us. We were there to learn. I did not want to clean the classroom. I did not want to be scared anymore. This is why I became a girl leader. I approached my head teacher to influence change despite being young. A girls' welfare committee was chosen and policies were implemented. I conducted meetings with my fellow girls to educate them on their rights and how to become leaders to ensure change at the school. Let's hold hands and stop girls' school dropouts.
Great message, but it shows just how important education is, but in many respects difficult too, which I don't think most of us think about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There are 66 million girls right now who are not in school around the world, and that is a tremendous gap that we need to be filling, because these are girls who, if they have the chance to go to school, you know, if 10% more girls in a country go to school, that country's GDP goes up by 3%. So that just gives you a sense that, you know, not just for those girls themselves and their families is education so critical. It's actually key for national development and global development.
Talk to us about leadership and creating these leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, what we really do is find visionary local leaders who have potential and have passion and really want to create a change. And we give them the leadership development, the funding, and the support to be able to create much larger scale impact. So, you know, one of my favorite stories is a woman that we started working with in Liberia who, at the time that we met her, had the only safe home for girls in Liberia. So 75% of girls and women in Liberia have been victims of violence during the conflict and the post-conflict. And this woman, Rosanna, had a safe home where she gave 25 girls a chance to go to school, a safe place to live. And when she became a part of Rise Up, she learned that there was no legal protection for girls whatsoever in Liberia. So she launched a campaign with support and funding from us, which led to passage of Liberia's national children's law, so guaranteeing girls access to healthcare services, education, outlawing child marriage, and other harmful traditional practices. So Rosanna was able to go from reaching 25 girls to now having legal protections in place for 2 million girls in Liberia. And to me, that really speaks volumes about the potential and the importance of investing in local leaders who know best what the solutions are and just need support from the rest of us to be able to achieve them.
Denise, thanks so much for joining us from San Francisco. Sure appreciate it.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Coming up next, how African women view tradition and change in the modern world. Knight International Journalism Fellow and former Wall Street Journal reporter Christopher Conti considers Uganda his second home. He lived there for 3 years, and soon after his arrival, he met a Kampala-based newspaper reporter, Lydia Namubiru. She shared with him interesting and insightful stories about her life. As time went on, their conversations became a running dialogue, so much so that the pair decided to collect stories from other Ugandan women and publish them. The collection ultimately became a book, Crossroads, Women Coming of Age in Today's. It's meant to shine a light on real women in the real Africa. In so doing, it's avoiding age-old stereotypes of helplessness and the need for Africa or its people to be rescued by the so-called developed world. Joining us now are Christopher and Lydia. Welcome to Fullframe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Chris, take us back in time. This initial kind of conversation, what was it like, and what kind of caught your ear, and how did it kind of perhaps reshape the way you looked at Uganda?
Well, I think your introduction touched on it, actually. I think I went, I had been in Africa before, but I had never been in Uganda. But, you know, we have preconceptions and stereotypes even that we aren't aware of. And I actually remember I was based at the newspaper where Lydia worked. And the first time I had a serious conversation with her, we went to lunch in the company canteen. And I was literally blown away by this person who was so sophisticated and so fascinating. I suddenly realized that I was going to have a quality of conversation completely different than I thought I would have when I thought I was going to teach the unformed, you know, poor Africans. I actually, and to this day, I still find that when I'm with Lydia, I listen a lot more than I talk.
Which is quite a quality when it comes to journalists, because they always have a lot to say. So what was your take on Christopher at first?
Well, I'm surprised that he says he was blown away. And I think if I'd known that at the time, I probably wouldn't have talked to him again. Because you're coming to a newsroom, a functioning, existing, you know, room of 300, 400 professionals doing a job. Shouldn't be surprising that you know, that there's a sophisticated, that they're sophisticated. Yeah. So and that's, I didn't get that though at the time. I didn't realize he was surprised. So that's nice. So because then we continued to have the conversation. I thought, but I did too have my own stereotypes. Because I think for me, Muzungus, as we call, you know, white people, it's not derogatory. They are people of authority. Typically, you'll interact with them as your boss in a job, as the donor for a project you want to be funded. So it was very different to have a normal, ordinary conversation.
So when did the two of you realize that that this needed to be out there? I mean, was it, did the light bulbs go on? Was that part of the initial conversations, or was it further down the road a piece?
Our first idea was to write a book called Conversations with a Mzungu. And it was just going to be a dialogue between the two of us.
And why is that important?
That's a good question. I think because there's a great deal of enlightenment that comes on both sides. Speaking as a Mzungu, I certainly learned and developed a much greater appreciation for the fact that that Lydia was part of a rich culture that deserved a great deal of respect, and that the way I, as a Westerner, wanted to relate to it, and the way I think Westerners in general should relate to it, is not as the, you know, pardon the expression, white knights who are coming in to rescue, but rather I think we need to approach each other, as you say, as equals.
Capturing all those voices and all those ways of looking at your country, it's fascinating. How did you recruit others to get involved?
In a way, that wasn't hard. I think we realized that a conversation between two people is not really rich, because at some point, I mean, you become monotonous. Even two people, you can only read so many essays from one person. But two, we became polarized. Like at one point, I was so defensive of everything that's African culture that when he wrote to me and asked, I just jumped at him. You're just trying to stereotype us, and this is not really, yeah. And at the same time, he too became sort of too defensive about Western culture, like I would question things. And I mean, he's a liberal feminist person, much like me, but we found ourselves speaking for like the polar opposites of our cultures, just to be just to be good ambassadors.
One of Lydia's pieces is just spot on about capacity building and all the catchphrases that we hear so much here in the West, and it's eye-opening reading that. But you say, and I want to get the quote just right, Christopher, that these essays tell stories about a rapidly changing society where they serve both as guardians of culture and harbingers of reform. So talk to us a little bit about this tension, if you will, that's going on. You've got these young women like this, feminists, and cultural stereotypes, and all of it's kind of this rich stew that's going on there in many respects.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, Lydia also talks about religion and being, you know, surrounded by traditional religion, which is kind of shunned. That really is a legacy of the, you know, the missionaries that to a certain extent, traditional African religion went underground.
Let me just ask a favor of both of you. Can you read just a short passage, if you will, from the book that jumps out at you? And then, Lydia, I'd like you read part of one of your passages as well. Chris, why don't we start with you?
Sure. The passage I'd like to read is written by a woman much like Lydia, named Shifum Wesigye. And her essay actually talks about how girls and then young women are trained and prepared to be good wives. And, you know, that includes everything to how to satisfy the man in the bedroom, to how to take care of his every need. And girls traditionally were taught that they were supposed to subordinate really their own needs and priorities to their husbands. Like the husband would get, you know, fed first, taken care of, you know, feet massaged, everything. And in some parts of Uganda, this is not uniform, but in some tribes, and several of the writers write about this, they were taught that girls and women should kneel for men. Mm. So if you knew Lydia, as you're getting to, you can imagine this is not a woman who's going to kneel for any man. But what interests me about the authors of this book is that they don't flatly reject what they taught, but rather they see ways that there's virtue in tradition, and they're in the essays and in their lives, they are trying to reconcile tradition with more modern
that tension
ideas.
We talked about, yeah.
So this essay actually refers to the lessons that this author learned, and she refers to Senga, which is the woman whose cultural role is to prepare the girl for a life of, you know, being a good Ugandan wife. And so the author says, I do know this. Society still needs many of the values Sengas teach, like modesty and the virtue of putting others ahead of ourselves. We all would be better off if everyone believed that caring for others and upholding the peace, comfort, pleasure, and stability of family and society are more important than getting ahead individually. If I can just read a little more. She says, of course, these values are just part of the traditional contract. The other part is that men have their exalted positions because they have great responsibilities to provide for others, to keep the peace, and to uphold laws and moral values. Sadly, as women rebel against traditional culture, the male part of traditional values also is suffering. Men have concocted their own self-serving mix of old and new. They happily embrace emancipation when it serves them, wanting, for instance, to divide bills right down the middle, or to partake of liberated women's commitment-free love. But they still expect their wives to kneel, cook, clean, and wait at home in warm beds with beads around their waists and terry cloths in hand. What's the solution? I'm still working on it.
You have one about spirituality. Will you share it with us?
I do, and I guess the background is, so before we did, of course, like every civilization, have our own belief system, but then the colonial experiment stormed in, and with it, the imported beliefs of the Western world, and also
or, you know, the Arab world, actually the Arab world before it. So my essay is just sort of talking about that, what that resulted into. So to start, Uganda is a potent mix of religiosity and spirituality. Nominally, 80% of Ugandans are Christian, and most of the rest have been instructed in Islam or some other imported belief system. We even have people whose religion is Judaism. Behind these foreign religions lie our traditional African beliefs and practices. There are no standards for balancing our imported faith with our ancestral ones, but most people, whether they acknowledge it or not, straddle the fence. It is not unusual to find a father who attempts to secure his children a place in heaven by baptizing them Christian, but then who turns to the traditional spirits to secure his wealth by occasionally sacrificing a cock or goat in the presence of a spiritual medium.
Let me ask you the final question. Someone picking up this book, what do you want them to walk away with when they finish it?
I would like them to appreciate that we are not simple folks. We are not one thing and not the other. You can't, like, there's so many things people say about what Africans are or aren't, what Ugandans are or aren't. It's problematic. It's problematic to take a whole population and think you could capture it in a sentence, in a particular description. And the diversity in this, in the subjects and the feelings and the perceptions of the people in this book, I hope that the people may go away disagreeing with what we believe, but at least I hope they can go away knowing we are complex.
Very. Chris, Lydia, thanks so much. The book is called Crossroads. Great read. Pick it up. It's available. Whether it's struggles for civil, political, economic, or gender rights, women around the world must often fight to have their voices heard. But one group is trying to advocate for women's rights by using film. Women's Voices Now uses a yearly online short film festival to encourage an international dialogue on women's rights. Fullframe contributor Sandra Hughes has more.
The reason that I became a filmmaker when I was a young girl, the Taliban came to Afghanistan and they took the power. That was the most difficult life for us, and because there was not allowed for us to go to school, and they're not allowed for women to go out. Even they can't go to doctor alone, they have to go with the husband or brother, and a lot of other problems.
Afghan filmmaker Alka Sadat's film Half Value Life was made of necessity. She wanted the world to see how women are devalued in her country. Her idea shows women across Afghanistan in different roles, focusing on the country's first female investigator as she uncovers atrocities at times too hard to hear. This child was forced into marriage and burned by her husband. Alka Sadat's film is never going to be a Hollywood blockbuster seen on the big screen, but it's no less impactful or important. It's part of a growing number of films created by men and women around the world aimed at bringing awareness to the plight of so many voiceless women, many who daily struggle just to stay alive. Women's Voices Now calls for filmmakers to send their stories and shares them with the world through an online film festival and at local screenings like this one.
We serve as a platform to amplify the voices of all women in the struggle for civil, economic, political, and gender rights, and we do that through film.
This year, the film festival has entries from the Middle East, Africa, Asia, and the U.S. The common theme is exposing a lack of women's rights around the globe and what many women perceive as their lack of value.
That experience of perhaps seeing yourself reflected in a character or a subject in a film, that's the moment where it becomes, oh, I could be that person too. I have a voice, I have rights, I have ideas, I have a vision. So now I'm going to go try to find the resources that are going to help me materialize into this person that I want to be. And this is what happens from these films.
Women's Voices Now awards grants to filmmakers like the woman who made this film about attacks in Bangladesh.
This woman decided to make a documentary about it, and we helped her get a grant to make it possible. And no one in her family supported her doing this. No one from the Acid Survivors Foundation would talk to her. She was very concerned for her well-being.
But that filmmaker was determined to expose a dirty truth for the world to see.
আর যখন রাস্তায় বেরোতাম, যখন মানুষে কথা বলতো, সাধারণ একজন শিক্ষিত ব্যক্তিও যখন বলতো যে এই ভূত যাচ্ছে, শয়তান যাচ্ছে, ভয়ঙ্কর, ভয় লাগে, এরকম ধরনের যখন কথা বলতো, তখন নিজেকে খুব কষ্ট লাগতো। কান্না, বুক ফেটে গেলে আমি কান্না করতে পারতাম না।
They have less of a support system. Not all, but some of them just kind of give up.
Layla Jarman's film Voice of the Valley was accepted as part of the Women's Voices Now Film Festival. She even decided to join its staff.
As a filmmaker, I was drawn to Women's Voices Now. I wanted to be a part of the work being done with Women's Voices Now because just making films alone isn't enough. I'm not naive to think that my film is going to change the world, but what will change the world is people coming together on a platform, making strides as one internationally and globally.
For her film, Jarman spent a year of her life telling the story of two Jordanian Muslim journalists.
So they go into the sort of deep Jordan Valley. It's very agricultural, it's very corrupt governmentally, and they bring the problems of the people to the government in Amman, in Jordan. And the story is just kind of a year in the life of their professional careers and how they've managed to switch things from being attacked because they wanted to be journalists and uncover these stories to being celebrated.
Through the lens of filmmakers like Alka Sadat, people are seeing firsthand the struggle of women around the world and their determination.
For me, it was very important to my work be useful for the woman. That's why always I try to, on my film, I try to show some powerful women to some other women who have problem, and they learn from the Afghan woman.
And if the Afghan women can learn from each other, the hope for Women's Voices Now is that by seeing the struggles of women featured on film, a lasting change can come. For Fullframe, this is Sandra Hughes in Los Angeles.
Coming up, how to change a girl's world so she has the power to change the world. As Senior Director of Girl Effect, Carvel Alawalia is part of a global effort to prevent the generational passing down of poverty. Her goal is to reach a powerful group with strong potential to break the cycle. Adolescent girls. Launched at the 2009 World Economic Summit, Girl Effect and their partners challenge the world to see girls not as part of the global poverty problem, but as co-creators of solutions. Among their many creative and innovative programs is Nyaminga. Take a look.
Nyaminga is inspiring and enabling girls nationwide to help Rwanda's transformation as a country. It's an identity, it's a movement, it's made by girls for girls. It's a quarterly magazine and a weekly radio show full of vital information that girls are sharing. Radio shows reach every region in Rwanda. 90,000 copies of the magazine go out every quarter. It's the highest circulated magazine in the country.
I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to build my own business as an electrician. Ninyaminga, let me see that girls can succeed the same way as boys.
Joining us now via satellite to tell us more about the worldwide work that Girl Effect is doing right now is Carvel. She's joining us from London. Thanks so much for being with us. Let's talk a little bit about the journey. In terms of girls' and women's rights, where are we now, would you say?
I'd say we probably have quite a long way to go. Interestingly, in Beijing 21 years ago, there was a landmark conference which illustrated all the ways in which women and girls suffered in discrimination and an abuse of their human rights. And this conference was really a landmark conference because it showed state governments what to do about it. And I think what's really interesting is that whilst we've seen numbers of gains for women and girls since that time, 21 years ago, we've seen, just as many challenges. So, for example, we see more girls than ever actually in school, but still mainly at primary and not at secondary school. We see unprecedented numbers of women in government, but again, are they having just as much influence as men, as their male counterparts? We also see a number of new laws that have been passed around protecting women from violence. But we still see not enough work being done to actually implement these. And, it's a sobering thought that nowhere in the world have we actually achieved gender equality. So we know we've made progress, but actually there's still quite a long way to go.
Talk to us about Girl Effect. How did it come about? Tell us about the genesis.
Sure. So it came about some 12 years ago with funding from a range of foundations, such as the Nike Foundation, the Novo Foundation. And I suppose initially it started very much about trying to get adolescent girls on the map. So what you find is that girls often fall out of discourse around women and fall out of, conversations around children. And there was a moment in time where people felt that actually we needed to focus in on girls and really understand the lives of adolescent girls so that we could understand what were the problems they were facing, which were different to younger girls and different to older women, and see how we could actually ensure that they maximize their potential. So as we've come forward into Girl Effect, we were called Girl Hub, as we come forward into Girl Effect, we're really looking at being a new development player, so different to some of the other existing development agencies, but looking at how we can work in a slightly more innovative space, working with brands and media.
Where is your footprint? What countries are we likely to see Girl Effect having an impact?
So currently we are in 3 countries in Africa, in Ethiopia, Rwanda and Nigeria. But we also have an online presence in 20 countries, which is translating into 15 languages. That's globally across the world.
The remarkable thing, though, and I find it remarkable, but I want to get your thoughts on this, is the impact you've had in Rwanda. When you look at a magazine, and I want you to talk a little bit about that, too, because magazines are considered legacy industries. You just can't get kids to pick them up. Nobody's interested in them. And yet the imprint you have there is remarkable. Talk to me about that and the radio reach as well.
Sure. So you're right. So something like almost half the population read this magazine. And when you actually have a look at it, it is in local language. But when you have a look at it, you can see that it's really designed for girls, by girls. So it's very kind of text light, image heavy. It's got a nice feel and touch and look about it. And it comes out quarterly. And then there's a radio program in between that. And what that allows girls to do is engage with the actual magazine, so it's something they can actually hold and take away, and it is full of very inspirational stories. So, for example, about the first female Rwandan air pilot, and then also it's got stories about, or factual information about things girls don't often hear about. So things like teenage pregnancy, menstruation. And we've just seen that by being able to read about the issues, but then also engage in discussion through radio programs or listening groups, that allows girls to sort of absorb this new information that they're exposed to, but then really importantly have the space to discuss it, because we know that it's one thing just raising awareness about an issue, but actually it's only through discussion, through reflection, through engagement with peer groups and other people around them that girls and those people around them will start to engage in different types of behavior, more positive behavior towards girls. And one of the things we've seen is that when we've done sort of an analysis of the impact of the magazine, something like 75% of the girls have said that, you know, they feel more confident as a result of reading this magazine and engaging in the process.
One of the things I hear from people who are on the continent, and one of the takeaways you hear when you have a conversation with them is that they get so unhappy with Western NGOs because they come in with this one-size-fits-all, we know exactly what's right for you, and there's not that deep engagement with the people who really are the ones who are going to be touched by this. And by investing in the girls, getting them on board, it's really made a difference for you, hasn't it?
I think that's right. And I mean, I think I would argue that NGOs do try to do that. They try and engage with local communities because we know that's how change actually happens. But I think sometimes that's challenging in terms of, you know, are we speaking to the right people? Are we actually getting to the heart of the matter? And that can be, you know, just logistically impossible and actually quite complex. But I think where Girl Effect does really well is, you know, it's found groups of girls that we get insights from. So one of the things we do in Nigeria is get girls to have access to phones where they can interview peers, so girls of the same age and sort of background, and ask them questions about their lives, and we can then get that information translated back to us within 15 minutes. And what that allows us to do is get a really deep insight into the lives of girls. And often, you know, if you go out into the field as someone external to that community, that creates a bias when they're giving you information. So what this does, because it's a peer mechanism where girls speak to girls from their own community, it's a really great way of getting insights without the bias that a kind of foreign researcher would normally create.
Talk to me about the club, too. You've got like 10,000 girls participating in it, right?
Yeah, that's right. So one of the things I think to bear in mind is that when we talk about brands at Girl Effect, you know, often we think about a brand as a logo, and actually how we define it is something much more holistic. So we talk about having an overarching brand presence where, you know, you might be aware of you know, a local brand, for example, Ninyaminga in Rwanda. But then that's delivered through these media platforms, which might be, for example, a radio program or a magazine. And then what we also do is clubs, which is a way in which girls connect. And that's a space for them to really just come together as peers. You know, we're talking like 10 to 13, 14-year-olds. And it's a space just for them. Often they're really kind of busy in their days doing household chores, going to school. So this is a safe space for them where they have mentors and where they're able to learn sort of life skills around, you know, what's menstruation, how do they stay safe in their communities, how do they learn to save. And also fun things, you know, like making jewelry and just having some fun, you know, singing, dancing. And through this process, they learn what we used to call back in the day consciousness raising. So it's something around, you know, having the ability to analyze the issues that you face and collectively seek solutions. And so this is a way that really boosts their self-esteem, their confidence, their ability as they grow into adulthood to deal with the issues that they might face further down the line. And the fourth component of the brand work that we do is community engagement, because we recognize that girls in and of themselves often are very low down the pecking order in terms of power in a household and much less in a community. So we understand the need to go beyond the girl and think about all those people that engage with the girl, that influence her life. So that might be parents, it might be caregivers, teachers, you know, people who have power in those communities. So we think about ways in which we can engage them in the work that we do so that we can create an enabling environment for girls to really thrive.
Enabling environment, but is there pushback? Do you find some men who just aren't accepting of this notion?
Sure, there's always pushback because, you know, we're talking about age-old practices, age-old behaviors, and age-old kind of attitudes towards what's acceptable for girls and women in terms of the behavior, their roles in society. You know, so when you start to question some of those things, it's a difficult thing for people to engage with, but I think it's about the approach and how you do it. So it's important that we don't alienate men. It's important that men are seen as part of the solution to the issue. When you talk about mentoring, that's got to be a critical component to all of this, isn't it? That's right. So it's a really tried and tested approach. We know that girls really benefit from having particularly female role models. And so, it's also a small space, because remember these networks or these clubs are quite small, so they have a lot of one-to-one time with a mentor where they can build trust and rapport to allow them to raise issues where they may not be able to raise them elsewhere. And we know that that's an effective way of allowing girls to surface issues both with their peers and with mentors and seek solutions for that.
Can you talk to me about your radio reach in Ethiopia?
Sure. So in Ethiopia, we have a brand called Yenya, and it has a TV show and it has a radio program. And what we do is, so we'll pick up issues in the TV program, and it could be on menstruation, it could be about making sure girls transition from primary to secondary school, or any, female genital mutilation, tricky things that actually it's difficult for girls to talk about. But what happens is that by airing it on this program that goes out in Addis and Amhara, it allows people to engage with issues and that are now deemed more normal to talk about. So it kind of visibilizes issues. But it also visibilizes girls in a more positive way. So it kind of sparks conversations in communities outside girls, again, speaking to this enabling environment. And then what happens afterwards is after the programs are aired, the same programs go out on the radio, bearing in mind not that everyone has access to the TV, so also it goes out on the radio. And then we have listeners groups after that. And that's a space where people can dial in, they can have like really active and energetic debates about the issues. And one thing we found is actually that men and boys are particularly interested in the either radio or TV programs. And it's a really good way of engaging with boys. Just as I said before, that without engaging men and boys, we know that we'd get a backlash. So it's been a really good way to engage them in a positive way, so that they can think about what their role is to help girls achieve their rights.
Thank you so much, Carvel. Really a pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with this week's Full Frame Close-Up.
CCTV America.
Wielding a spray can is second nature to street artist Lola Glass, known to her fans as Lola the Illustrator. She's created 3 larger-than-life murals and has earned 2 invitations to the Bushwick Collective Block Party. It's an annual event that draws street artists from around the world. And while Lola is one of only a few females practicing this art form in a male-dominated scene, what really sets her apart is her age. Lola is 7. Full Frame caught up with this young artist in New York City to learn how this 7-year-old is making a name for herself and gaining respect.
Can get tall like this, so you can reach all the way up. Say bye, elephant.
Bye, elephant. I love you so much. My name is Lola. I'm 7 years old, and I paint at the Bushwick Collective. I've done an elephant here in Bushwick, which I'm going to paint over today.
Drawing has always been a big interest of hers. She just immediately saw what the possibilities were when we came here, and she saw everything, like so huge on the walls. We were visiting the Bushwick Collective with a friend of mine who's a graphic designer, and he had a spray marker that he gave to her So we walked around and we saw all the paintings, and she was dying to paint something.
I was driving down showing some murals to an artist that wanted to paint, and I see a little girl in a white dress on her tippy toes with a marker about this big, and she's drawing on top of Bo Stanton's wall, and I was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And she just goes. So I put the car in park, and Son was in the car with me. Son goes, "Joe, what are you doing, bro? Chill out. She's a little girl." I was like, "Yeah, you're right, dude. I shouldn't be yelling." "Why are you doing that?" And he's like, "You're still yelling." I was like, "I can't hear myself yelling. It doesn't seem like I'm yelling." I get out of the car, I go up to her, and as I go up to her, she's backing up against the wall like this. And her parents were across the street, and they run across the street, and they're like, "No, no, 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 no. She's with us. She's with us." I was like, "She's with you?" I was like, "Yeah, she's very inspired about the community, the neighborhood, online, and she's very inspired about being here." I said, "Yeah, but you don't write on someone's wall like that." She didn't know, so I said, "Right here, draw something right here." So she drew something and said, "When you're done drawing it, just like any one of my artists, I want you to sign it." Well, she doesn't know what to sign it, so I said, "What's your name?" She said, "Lola." It's all right, Lola.
Whenever I come here to start a new wall, he's always with me. And when he said, "Welcome to the Bushwick Collective," I knew it was just the beginning. Somebody painted over my thing. Just paint half the thing all over again.
Yeah, we have to repaint that.
And I guess he's not from the Bushwick Collective, because otherwise he would have asked Joe, and Joe would have said no, because Joe loves me. I wanted my friends all to be on top of each other, but now I have a big, fat, stupid friend who's not part of me. Now I have to spend the whole day painting over the whole background.
I'll help you. It won't take that long. Right up there.
Yep, we start from the end and the middle where we go.
I painted the other day. I'm the blue monster. I'm so sorry. Somebody tells me you're so upset with me. No?
It's called Increditoro. It's mixed up in two of my favorite movies. One's called My Neighbor Totoro, and the other one's called The Incredibles. So I mixed both of those movies up to make a superhero that I named Increditoro. I always thought that drawing on paper was easier, painting on the walls, but painting on the walls is a little fun and it takes more time.
I love it. Very good. All right.
I get one idea, and if I think that other people might think that it's like too normal and they wouldn't want to photograph it, or they wouldn't think it is as good as other people's art, but they might think that if I put more detail into it. And I also want to give it my best touches, because you should just start off with your style and what you like to do, and then as you get bigger, then you can look at what other artists paint, and then you can mix that up with your style, and then you can make a remarkable piece of art.
The Bushwick Collective Block Party was the beginning of this all. Originally, it was the first Mother's Day without my mom dying of brain cancer, me being part of this neighborhood my whole life, 37 years. I really missed her. It's still hard to talk about it, but I wanted to have a party. Hopefully to raise money for kids with brain tumors. It didn't work out. We lost money because we didn't charge anybody. And then I said, hey, why don't we have some people come and paint some walls while we do that? And we did it. It just filled me up with life again. And the energy behind people like this put me back together. We have 50 people painting the streets. We have an art exhibition with 50 artists, commission free. It's a whole weekend of free events. You come see me today?
I mean, Joe's been amazing. He really, besides giving Lola a wall to paint on, he's been supporting her and mentoring her, really, getting her to meet people who had different styles, constantly pushes her to do her best. He asks her for pieces, so she has to work on stuff.
It feels like I'm becoming more and more a real artist.
Before I even look at your art, I look at is how you live your life. You could be famous, or you could be little Lola just trying to start out. It don't make a difference with me. You gotta meet some standards. It's about my mother. My mom's always proud of me, like your mom's proud of you. But I'm sure she'd be very proud if she had the chance to be.
Thank you. See you next time.
I'm blown away to know when she's gonna be my age and she's gonna be speaking to people on this side of the bench and saying that where she is in her life, who she's painted with, and all the wonderful things she's accomplished. And it's an inspiration for a lot of people who are scared to do what they love to do. You know, at my age or older, they're like, no, I don't know if I can go back to school. Or, nah, I don't know if I can be an artist, or I can be a dancer, or... Right here, she's letting you know you can be, because she don't give at all. She don't give a crap. She just, she loves it, and she eats it up. So I'm so honored and proud that I found her, and that I work with her, and that I get to watch her grow and develop. She's one of my stars. Right, Lola?
Yeah.
That's it for this week. Join the conversation with us on social media. We are CCTV America on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And now you can watch Full Frame on our mobile app, available worldwide on any smartphone for free. Get the latest news headlines and connect to us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Weibo. Search CCTV America on your app store to download today. All of our interviews can still also be found online at cctv-america.com. And let us know what you'd like us to take Full Frame next. Simply email us at fullframe@cctv-america.com. Until then, I'm Mike Walter in New York City. We'll see you next time.